This is a creepy story about Smiley Face. One night a girl was at a nightclub with her friends. She was drinking and dancing all night. Her and her friends decided to leave around 3 in the morning. She said goodbye to her friends and started to go home. She couldn't get a taxi, so she walked home. On the way home, she had to pass a park. It was very dark. All she could hear was her shoes clacking against the road. She thought she saw somebody moving in the bushes, so she quickened her pace. Suddenly, a man behind a bush jumped out and blocked her path. His face was hideous. The girl tried to run, but he cornered her and grabbed her arms. The girl was screaming for her life and was begging him to let her go, but the man's deformed face twisted into a creepy grin. The man said, "Do you want death or smiley face?" She cried out, "Please just let me go." Then the man said death or smiley face again. The girl didn't know what he meant, so she replied smiley face. Then the man pulled out a knife and sliced the girl's corners of her mouth all the way up to her ears. Now she had the same deformed smile as the man. Creepy photos that will give 99% of you chills, part 1. Most people would assume that this photo is photoshopped, but if you look closely, you can easily see the edge of the latex masks covering these people's faces. Now the only question remains is, why would you wear this out in public? And what was the reasoning? After this girl was rescued from a concentration camp in Poland, psychologists asked her to draw a picture of home. Unlike other children who simply drew themselves and their family before the war, this girl only drew random and chaotic lines, making you really understand the trauma the concentration camps caused. Marie de Hoya passed away from tuberculosis at 21 years old. During her illness, her doctor Carl Tanzler completely fell in love with her, and after she died, he kept and mummified her body. He kept her corpse for 7 years before he was finally caught and imprisoned. This Russian boy claimed to live on Mars, and it could be true. This is Boris Kripianovich, and he claimed to have lived on Mars before being reborn on Earth on an apparent mission to save mankind. His mother claims that he spoke just 2 months after being born, and by the time he was 1 year old, he was able to read, draw, and paint. He started kindergarten at just 2 years old, and his teachers were amazed at his language and writing skills at just 2 years old. He claims he was a Martian pilot who traveled to Earth. His parents never taught him anything about space, and he knew everything about Mars, the planetary systems, and alien life forms. His knowledge on planetary systems confuses scientists around the whole world. He said that his race of Martians was wiped out from a nuclear civil war on Mars and was sent to Earth to prevent this from happening to us humans. And he fears that we are very well heading in that direction. This is a creepy story about It Won't Hurt. There was a bus driving late one night. The bus was packed and full of people. Suddenly, an old woman on the bus became ill and asked the bus driver to stop the bus. They were on a country road surrounded by a forest, so the driver told her to wait until the next town. The old woman began to scream and yell, demanding the driver stops the bus now. The driver then pulled over to the side of the road, and the old woman got out and fled into the woods. When the old woman came back from the woods, she was holding a little girl's hand who was crying. When they got on the bus, everybody asked the little girl what was wrong. She said that her mother brought her into the woods and placed her on a tree and put a noose around the girl's neck and said, "Whenever you get bored, just jump. Don't worry, when you jump, it won't hurt." The old woman said she didn't know why, but she felt something was wrong in the woods, and when she got in the woods, she caught the girl as she was jumping. The bus driver then started to drive again. He then saw a young woman standing on the road and decided to stop. When the woman got on the bus, the little girl stood up and said, "Mom, you said it wouldn't hurt." This is the scary story about the bouncing ball. There was a babysitter who was hired to take care of a little girl. That night after the parents left, the babysitter let the girl watch a horror movie on TV. Halfway through the movie, the little girl said she had to use the bathroom, but was too scared to go on her own. The babysitter did not want to miss the movie, so she came up with a solution. She gave her a rubber ball and told her to keep bouncing it while she was on the toilet. The little girl did as she was told, and the babysitter listened to her high-pitched voice saying bouncy, bouncy, bouncy. Half an hour later, the babysitter started to wonder why the young girl hasn't come back yet. She still heard the singing coming from the toilet, but now the little girl's voice sounded deeper. The babysitter got off the sofa and went to go check if she was okay. When she opened the bathroom door, the babysitter was horrified to see a man sitting on the floor, bouncing the little girl's head on the ground and singing bouncy, bouncy, bouncy. This is the disturbing truth behind the Rugrats. The Rugrats really were a figment of Angelica's demonic and unimaginable imagination. Chucky died in 1986 along with his mother. That's why Chaz is a nervous wreck all the time. Tommy was born in 1988, but he was a stillborn. That's why Stu is constantly in the basement making toys for the son who never had a chance to live. The DeVilles had an abortion in 1990. Angelica couldn't figure out whether it would be a boy or a girl, thus creating the twins. As for all grown up, the teenage Angelica became addicted to various narcotics, which further aggravated her schizophrenia, bringing her back to her childhood and her creations that she obsessed about. Because of the time lapse between the present and the last time she interacted with her creations, she made them all older. This is the creepy story about Left Behind. One night, a girl was waiting at a bus stop after work. As she stood there waiting for the bus, she got a strange feeling that she left something behind, but she had no idea what it was. When the bus came, all the seats were full, so she had to hang on to the handrail. She then bumped into a man. She said, "I'm sorry," but he just looked away. More and more she felt that she left something very important back at the office. The further the bus carried her from the office, the more certain she became she left something behind. She then went over the whole day in her head, but couldn't think of anything that she could have left behind. She told herself she will feel better when she gets home, but the feeling of forgetting something didn't leave. When she got off the bus on the street of her house, she finally gave in and decided to go back to the office to see what she'd forgotten. She got back on the bus and went back to the office. When she arrived, she ran up the stairs and opened the office door. She then stopped in her tracks in horror and recognized it was herself that she left behind. Her dead body was laying strangled on the floor. This is the creepy story about something was wrong. One morning, a man found himself walking along a deserted street in a small town. He had no idea what he was doing or how he got there in the first place, or where he had been earlier. He didn't even know what time it was. He saw a woman walking towards him and stopped her. "I'm afraid I forgot my watch," he said with a smile. "Can you please tell me the time?" When the woman saw him, she screamed and ran away. The man was shocked. A few minutes later, he noticed that other people were afraid of him too. Whenever they saw him, they flattened themselves against a building or just ran away. There must be something wrong with me, thought the man. He yelled for a taxi, but when the taxi driver laid eyes on him, he stomped on his gas and sped away. The man thought this was crazy and couldn't figure out what was wrong. Maybe my wife could come pick me up, the man thought. He then found a telephone and called his house. Expecting to hear his wife's sweet voice, instead a strange voice answered. "Is Mrs. Sullivan there?" said the man. "I'm sorry, she isn't," said the voice. "Her husband died a few days ago in a horrible car crash, and she's attending his funeral." Most Scary Urban Legends, Part 10. This is Tiki Tiki. She was a girl who fell under a train, and the train cut her in half. Now she roams around using her arms, looking for her next victim. Every time she moves, she makes a tiki tiki sound. She cuts people in half by using a saw or a scythe to make them look like her. If she spotted you or you saw her, she will immediately come after you. She is super fast and quick, and there is no way of getting away from her. She is compared to Kuchisaki Onna because you cannot escape or defeat either one of them. This is the creepy story about the text message. A 15-year-old boy lived in a small town in Maryland. After getting home from school one day, he went on his computer. He logged into an instant messenger and was surprised to see a message from a classmate who wasn't in school that day. It said, "Please come." The boy was confused and texted him back asking why he wasn't at school. He sent a couple more messages, and after 15 minutes of no response, he decided to ride his bike over to his classmate's house that was about 5 minutes away. When he got to the house, the door was unlocked and opened slightly. Inside the house, there was blood splattered all over the walls and floor. There were severed arms and legs scattered across the room, and there was blood streaks on the floor from somebody dragging dead bodies. The boy then slammed the door and immediately called the police. When the police arrived, they found 3 dead bodies, as well as bloody footprints leading out the door. The forensic report concluded that the boy's classmate and his parents were brutally murdered the night before. This is the scary story about the wild rose. Many years ago, there was a young woman named Alyssa Day. Everybody thought she was the most beautiful woman ever. One day, a young man came into town, and the first moment he set eyes on Alyssa Day, he knew she was the one. He then went to her house, knocked on her door, and introduced himself. He then took her into his arms and kissed her red ruby lips. The following day, the young man came back and brought her a single red rose and told her she was the most beautiful woman ever. He then asked her to meet him down by the river where all the wild roses grew. He then took her down to the river and they both gazed at the water silently. The man then kissed her one last time. He then waited until her back was turned and then beat her to death with a rock in his hand. As he killed her, he whispered, "All beauty must die." He then placed a rose between her teeth and slid her body into the river. To this day, her body was never found, and many people claimed to see her ghost wandering along the banks of the river. with a single rose in her hand and her head bashed in with blood all over her. This is the scary story about the father and daughter. Late one night, a husband and wife were driving down a lonely road when suddenly a little girl came running out of the woods. She stopped in front of the car, crying loudly and holding out her hands. The husband was shocked and almost ran her over, but swerved away at the last second. When they calmed down, the couple began to discuss what they just saw. "What is the little girl doing out here all alone after dark?" the husband said. "I don't know," said his wife. Just then they noticed a man on the road ahead. When the man noticed the car, he put out his hand and flagged them down. The husband then pulled over to him. The man said, "Have you seen my daughter?" and told them him and his daughter were on a hiking trail and they got split up in the dark. The couple said they just saw his daughter a couple minutes ago and pointed to where they saw her. The man said thank you and took off running down the road. A week later, the couple was watching the news. They said a dead body of a little girl was found on the side of the road. They then put up the picture of the murderer, and it was the same man who they talked to. He wasn't the little girl's father at all. The little girl was trying to escape her kidnapper, and they helped him catch her without knowing it. This is the terrible story about Omaira Sanchez. In 1985, a highly active volcano in Colombia erupted, sending torrents of mud and debris into the villages. 13-year-old girl named Omaira Sanchez, along with her family, were stuck in the destruction of their house. Though Omaira was mobile from the waist up, she could not move her legs because they were pinned beneath a door made of bricks, and the arms of her dead aunt were wrapped around her legs super tightly. Rescuers attempted to pull her body up multiple times, but discovered it was impossible to get her out without breaking or amputating her legs. Her skin began to turn white, and her eyes became black. The relief workers decided the most humane course of action would be to let her die, which she did after being pinned beneath the rubble for more than 60 hours. The most chilling thing about Omaira Sanchez's death was that she was surrounded by workers who could not save her life. She was awake the whole time in her terrible situation, and as she was about to die, she began to say her goodbyes to everybody around her. This is the creepy story about the button. There was a husband and wife at their house when they heard somebody knock on the door. When they answered it, there was a strange man at their doorstep, dressed in a black suit and holding a large briefcase. The man then said, "I wonder if I could have a few minutes of your time." They were nice people, so they let him in. The man placed his briefcase on the kitchen table, and then he took something out of it. It was a box with a red button on the top. He handed the box to the husband and wife. The gentleman then said in a calm voice, "Today is your lucky day. You could become rich beyond your imagination. If you press this button, you will receive $1 million in cash. There is just one catch. Someone you don't know will die." The gentleman then opened his briefcase, showing the stacks of money inside. The gentleman said he would come back tomorrow after they make a decision. The husband and wife argued about it, but eventually they pressed the button. The next day, the man took the box and gave them their money. Before the gentleman left, the husband said, "What are you going to do with the box now?" The gentleman smiled and said, "I'm going to give it to someone who doesn't know you." Spine-tingling photos taken just before tragedy, part 8. In this photo, you see the 3 astronauts that were on Apollo 1 praying to their mini command module. They were doing this for hopes of good luck, but sadly their rocket blew up during launch and the 3 men in this photo burned to death. This is a message from the lipstick killer written on the wall in lipstick right after he brutally stabbed somebody to death. The message says, "For heaven's sake, catch me before I kill more. I cannot control myself." This is the last photo of Michael Rockefeller, who is on his knees in the middle of the picture. He looks so happy in this photo, but he has no idea what is about to happen to him. The group of people that he is with are called the Azmet people. They are a cannibal group who cut off their victim's head and eat their flesh. And that is exactly what they did to Michael Rockefeller. This is what would happen if a zombie apocalypse actually happened. I know if a zombie apocalypse happened, everybody thinks they would be just like Rick Grimes in The Walking Dead. But sadly, you won't. Because in the actual event of a zombie apocalypse, humans will be wiped out in less than 100 days. According to a study done by multiple scientists, they said that zombies would cause Earth's population to drop to around 200 survivors in only 100 days. So, I don't know about you, but I gotta start learning how to kill zombies.
These are photos taken right before death. In this photo, you can see a woman named Lisa Lopez driving her car. Moments after this photo was taken, Lisa had to swerve off-road in order to avoid hitting an oncoming truck. She was thrown out of the vehicle and sadly did not survive the collision. In this photo, you can see a woman named Gabriela Hernandez. Moments after she took this photo, she posted it on Facebook and sadly took her own life. This woman posted this picture on Snapchat moments before her boyfriend shot her in the back of the head. In this photo, you can see a man who had fallen onto some train tracks. And unfortunately, the man wasn't able to get up in time before getting fatally struck by the subway. A kid took a photo of his mom smiling right before she went through brain surgery. Unfortunately, the mother died during her brain surgery, but it inspired her son to always keep smiling even through the tough times.
Serial Killer's Last Words, Part 3. This is Timothy McVeigh. He is responsible for the Oklahoma City bombing that killed over 168 people in 1995. He was executed by lethal injection in 2001. His final words were, "I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul." This is James Jackson. He killed his wife and his 2 stepdaughters. He was executed by lethal injection in 2007. His final words were, "See you on the other side. Warden, murder me. I'm ready to roll. Time to get this party started." This is Carlos Granados. He stabbed his girlfriend Kathy Jimenez to death and killed her 3-year-old son. He was executed by lethal injection in 2007. His final words were, "Kathy, you know I never meant to hurt you. I gave you everything, and that's what made me so angry. But I never meant to hurt you. I'm sorry."
This experiment shows that normal people can become monsters in the right circumstance. In 1971, 12 young men were placed under arrest and brought into a makeshift prison underneath Stanford University. 24 volunteers were paid $15 a day to participate. 12 guards and 12 prisoners were to spend the next 2 weeks recreating life inside a correctional facility. Stanford psychology professor Philip Zimbardo began this study to see how ordinary people would behave underneath these circumstances. The guards forced the prisoners to strip naked and refer to themselves only by the number they were assigned. They were no longer individuals, forced to wear gowns and shackles. The guards quickly adopted to their new professions. They wore mirrored sunglasses to make them feel like they were anonymous. Some controlled the prisoners' food rations, restricted bathroom use, and woke them up in the middle of the night and forced them to do push-ups. This was just the beginning of this cruel experiment. Like and follow for part 2.
What this college professor did to his family will blow your mind. This is James Golden Walcott, and when he was 15 years old, he killed his entire family. After sniffing airplane glue on August 5th, 1967, his dad's body was found in the living room, having been shot twice in the chest. His mom's body was found in her bedroom, and she was shot once in the face and the chest. And his sister was found in her bedroom, still hanging on to life after being shot twice in the head and once in the chest. She would then die at the hospital later that morning. James Gordon Walcott was found not guilty by reasons of insanity and was transferred to a mental hospital. 7 years later in 1974, James was released from the hospital after being declared sane. Today, James Walcott is an award-winning professor of psychology and is the head of Millikan University's psychology department. His students love him and always defend him when this gruesome story gets brought up. These are the scariest foods to eat in the world, part 4. Up first is a sourtail cocktail. This is served in Dawson City, California at the Sourtail Cocktail Club. This is a preserved human toe in a cocktail drink. You have to drink the whole cocktail and eat the human toe to be accepted into the sourtail oath. Up next is fried rattlesnake. This is very popular in Texas, and it apparently tastes better than chicken. But if you're afraid of snakes, this is not the meal for you. Next is a puffer fish. This fish is super poisonous, and it can easily kill a human, as it's 100 times more potent than cyanide. If you eat one of these, with a lethal dose of toxins in it, you will quickly die. Finally is black pudding. But this is nothing like pudding. This is made from pigs and cows' cooked blood, which is super creepy and disgusting. So unless you're a vampire, I don't recommend eating this. These are scary pictures that you have to look at twice, part 7. Up first is a picture of a young woman who is just taking a selfie in her car. But if you look at the back window, you can see a creepy ghostly man on the back of her car. The girl noticed the creepy man right when she took the photo, but when she turned around, he was gone. Next is a photo that just looks normal. That is until you know what's hiding in it. Standing right in front of the tractor is a creepy ghost boy who is blending in perfectly. People think that this boy died in a terrible way from this tractor, and now his spirit is attached to it. Finally is a picture of a woman and what appears to be her husband. But her husband has been dead for almost 15 years. So when his ghost touches her shoulder, she immediately freaks out. This is the disturbing truth behind the man with two faces. This is Edward Mordrake. He was a wealthy English man, and everybody said he was handsome when he was viewed from the front, but he was affected by a severe deformity. On the back of his head, there was a second face, and those who saw it said it was hideous, twisted, and evil. They say the second face never ate or spoke, but it could smile and frown, and its eyes would always follow you across the room. And every time Edward complained about his condition, the second face always made a mean expression and started moving its lips. Edward said that he was kept awake every single night by the hateful whispers of his evil twin. Edward begged his doctors to surgically remove his demon face, saying it kept him awake at night by whispering hateful and satanic things to him. But no doctor did it because they thought it would kill him. Edward then managed to get his hands on some poison, and he then committed suicide at the age of 23. He wrote a note before he died, and it said, "Please destroy the demon face, or it will continue its dreadful whispers in my grave." Creepy photos that will give 99% of you chills, part 2. This is the Cooper family, and one night they took a picture at the dinner table. When they took the picture, everything was normal, but when the picture got developed, they saw something truly horrifying. A man's dead body was falling from the ceiling and was hanging next to the family. The creepiest part, though, is that the Cooper family did not see the body at the table. In 1947, the Thomas family went out for a picnic near Hansen Dam in Los Angeles when their two children disappeared. This photo captures Mrs. Thompson's reaction to seeing the drowned body of her daughter. Her son would be found dead soon after. Blanche Munier was planning to marry a man her mother did not like. When she disappeared, most people assumed that she had just run off with the man. However, 25 years later, someone tipped the police and told them her mother was keeping her hostage. And when they entered the home, they found Blanche tied to the bed and starved in the attic. This is the disturbing truth behind Phineas and Ferb, part 2. The villain of the show, Dr. Doofenshmirtz, is actually Candace's psychologist, whom she sees twice a week. It started to put strain on the family to try and pay for all these expensive doctor visits. In desperation, Candace's mother had an idea to write down all the stories that Candace was telling her and tried to sell it to Disney as a show, and it worked. Candace is also responsible for Perry the Platypus and Dr. Doofenshmirtz's rivalry. As time went on, Candace developed schizophrenia and became more crazy than what she already was. She then committed suicide. So Phineas and Ferb never actually went on adventures, and instead it was just going on inside the crazy mind of Candace. This is the conspiracy theory behind the D'Amelio family. The conspiracy theory starts by saying Charlie's rise to fame was out of nowhere, and saying that the app has been around for 5 years, and not one other person got so many followers, not even the most popular creators. Then the theory continues by saying that her dad, Mark D'Amelio, is rich and a politician, and says that he plans on running in a future election, and being known worldwide as Charlie D'Amelio's father could possibly ensure the votes of the future generation of voters who aren't very educated in a political field. Now, this is just a conspiracy theory, so I don't know if it's true or false, so let me know what you guys think. These are the worst school shootings of all time, part 1. Up first is the Virginia Tech Massacre. This young man right here, whose name is Seung Hyu Cho, killed 32 people and injured 17 more in 2 separate attacks. He is responsible for committing the deadliest attack on a school in the United States. Up next is Sandy Hook Elementary. 20-year-old boy named Adam Lanza is responsible for arguably the most senseless and brutal attack on a school in the United States. On December 14th, 2012, Lanza killed his mother before heading down to Sandy Hook Elementary, where he killed 26 people and injured 2 officers. And the most disturbing part is that the majority of his victims were children aging from 5 to 10 years old. This is the scary story about the old man in the picture. A kid named Jake and his mom were waiting in a doctor's waiting room. Jake was not happy. He did not like waiting, and he did not like the room. And he definitely hated the painting that was right across from him. It was an ugly portrait of an old man. The old man in the painting seemed to be staring right at Jake. There was a strange look in his eyes, and it was very disturbing. Every time Jake moved, the old man's eyes followed him around the whole room. Jake's mom then got called to see the doctor, and she got up and went in. Jake was now alone with the creepy old man painting, but he did not want to admit that he was scared. He then went closer to the painting, and he suddenly noticed something very odd. The old man's hands were coming out of the painting, and they were long and bony with sharp nails. When his mother came out of the doctor's office, Jake was nowhere to be found. She looked at the painting of the old man, but he was no longer in the painting. Jake's mother called the cops, and when they arrived, they figured out that the painting of the old man was not a painting, instead a real man standing in the opening of the wall who kidnapped Jake.
Scary Stories About the Dark Web, Part 3. If you have a weak stomach, I wouldn't recommend this one. So there used to be a webpage known as Animal Nightmare, and it is exactly how it sounds. So in one of the videos, there was a kitten who had both of his arms and legs tied up, as well as the mouth. I promise this ending has a happy ending, so just bear with me. And in this video, you kept hearing walking, and it ended up being a woman in red high heels. The woman then stomped the cat over and over and over again. One of the messed up things though is on this particular forum website, you couldn't pause videos and you couldn't stop videos. Once you clicked play, it played. She then stomped the kitten for 19 minutes long. Now here's the happy ending. Some animal activists actually tracked this woman down and they stomped her over and over and over again for hours until the woman died.
This is a creepy story about the fire eater. There was a 43-year-old named Vlad who worked as a fire eater in a circus. Vlad would always hold a flammable cocktail in his mouth so he could spit fire at a burning torch. He called it eating the fire, and the crowd always applauded. On January 23rd, 1998, Vlad was performing a fire spitting routine, and he accidentally swallowed some of the flammable liquid. As he put the flaming torch in his mouth to eat the fire, he burped. The vapors from his stomach then caught fire, and Vlad suddenly exploded. The stunned onlookers assumed it was part of an amazing illusion, and they started clapping. Then, very slowly, they realized what really happened. The explosion was so powerful that Vlad's body was blown to pieces, and they found his head in the popcorn machine. The tragedy horrified the audience members, and many of them required treatment for shock following the terrible incident. This is the story about the molten iron. There was an iron foundry outside a small town. They had a huge blast furnace, and the molten iron would run down and collect in large troughs in the ground. This was in the days before health and safety regulations, so there was no protective barriers around the troughs. One day there was a kid that was new on the job, and the workers there were showing him what to do. He then accidentally tripped and fell into one of the troughs. He went in the molten iron knee deep and was screaming and crying for help. The kid's father worked at the iron foundry also, and when he saw what happened to his son, he came running. He saw his son screaming in agonizing pain. He then jumped into the trough, grabbed his son, and pushed him out. The father was covered in molten iron, and a couple seconds later he died. The kid had to get his 2 legs amputated due to the severe burns and because he was never going to be able to walk again. But if it wasn't for his dad who saved him, he would have ended up the same way his dad did.
If you can make it through this entire video, I guarantee you won't be able to sleep tonight. A man was working late at night when he received a notification that there was detected movement on his son's baby monitor. He checked the app, expecting to see that his 3-year-old son had just coughed or sneezed loudly. But when he looked at the baby cam, he was shocked to see his son and wife acting very strange. They were sitting on the bed together, both glaring at the camera with blank, emotionless stares. He assumed that the camera was just frozen, but noticed that his wife and son were blinking every couple of seconds. He then called his wife to make sure everything was okay, and she told him that she was in bed with her son and he had gotten scared a couple of minutes ago and came into her room crying. The husband was stunned. He slowly told his wife that they were both in their son's room looking into the baby monitor. Just as the wife was about to respond, there was a loud screech and the call ended. The man then went to check the baby monitor and it was complete static.
Scary stalker stories. This one's gonna make you afraid to go to bed. A woman named Chelsea Clark was watching movies with her boyfriend when the next day she woke up and received this message. It said, "Really cute couple." His profile picture was a picture of the Joker. She hurried up and screenshot it, but then literally later that day the account was deleted. Police soon investigated but found no leads and could not trace him. What would you do in this situation? Somebody taking a picture of you and your boyfriend in bed. But turns out there's an update to the story. Turns out it was a hacker from Egypt in a group called Spammers and Hackers who hacked into her boyfriend's webcam while they were watching Netflix. I would start covering my cameras on my laptops, ladies. Like this video if you want more scary true stories.
This fish is the most Australian fucking thing ever. Honestly, a middle finger from nature. Most animals have to choose, like you can have camouflage like the snow leopard that's looking right at you, or you can stand out but only by being toxic like this frog. Or you can be this hellspawn with gills and be both. Because if the stonefish doesn't move, it can cosplay as just another rock in the water. The bad news is, it's the most venomous fish on the planet with dorsal spines as sharp as hypodermic needles. If you accidentally step on a stonefish, those spines will extend and penetrate through your skin. all while injecting you with a life-threatening venom that, if not treated, can turn you into a hashtag in less than 2 hours. This homicide guppy produces toxins that can cause excruciating pain, swelling, tissue death, and everything death. One victim told ABC News that getting stung felt like getting hit with a sledgehammer for an hour straight. And again, if you don't get medical attention fast enough, 60 Minutes won't just be a show on CBS, it'll be your expiration date. Scientifically speaking, that's a dick move. As you see, most poisonous and venomous animals have the decency to at least warn you before they airdrop you to God's inbox. This octopus will flash its blue rings, and the dart frog's bright colors are to warn the jungle senses that touching it means touching the heaven gates. But like a true menace, the stonefish doesn't give a warning until it's 6 inches deep in your foot. Fun fact, there's 4 of them in this picture. Oh, and because Australia lives on veteran difficulty, the stonefish can survive out of water for up to 24 hours. Also, its venom lowers your white blood cell count, meaning you can catch an infection even after you get treated. All that from a fish that looks like a rock. It's like if stop signs were made in Braille. It's like a red flag, but you're colorblind. Cause in Australia, mistaking a stonefish for the first part of its name can get you put under a stone. This fish and whoever made it.
This is the creepy story about the alarm clock. A girl got home late one night. She watched a little TV, then went to bed. The girl then had a terrible nightmare that night. She was in her room when a creepy woman came out of her closet. Her alarm clock was flashing 12:07 as the creepy woman pushed her long nails into the girl's chest and covered her mouth with her other hand. The girl then woke up and shot upright in her bed. She was so relieved that it was only a dream. But as she looked at her clock beside her bed, it said 12:06, and she heard her closet door slowly opening.
These are the 2 most dangerous places on Earth. Number 1, we have North Sentinel Island. If you go anywhere near this island, you will die. This island is in the middle of nowhere, and the only way you can access it is through boat. The people on this island are known as the North Sentinelese, and they are all part of one tribe. And they are so dangerous the Indian government actually said it is illegal to go within 5 miles of this island. But if you get anywhere close to this island, they will most likely shoot you with bow and arrows, beat you to death, and consume your body. This is American missionary John Chow. He tried to spread the gospel to the North Sentinelese people, but it did not go so well. He was killed on spot and they kept his body. Next is Snake Island. If you go here, you will die. This island is filled with the most dangerous snakes in the world, and if you are bit, you will be dead in less than 1 hour. The last person that visited was killed, and Brazil made it illegal to visit this island.
Facts that can save a life, part 1. If your house smells like fish for absolutely no reason, there may be an electric fire. If someone tries to kidnap you, scratch your attacker because now their DNA will be in your fingernails. If you ever find yourself buried in an avalanche, just spit. Your spit will follow gravity and you could dig the opposite direction. You wake up in the middle of the night to the smell of gas, do not turn your light switch on, it could blow up your whole house. If you accidentally disturb a beehive, do not go underwater, they will just wait for you and sting you more. Run as far away as possible and they will eventually tire out. The more colorful and vivid the animal, the more likely it's poisonous. Your pupil reflects white, like right here, you need to go see a doctor, something's wrong with your eye. If a tornado looks like it's not moving, it's because it's moving towards you. Follow for more life-saving facts.
Here are facts you didn't know that one day could save your life. If you're ever buried in rubble, yelling will only waste your energy. Look for something to grab and tap in intervals of 3, and rescuers will notice this strange pattern. If a tornado looks like it's standing still, this means it's actually moving towards you. If your drink randomly smells like cinnamon, don't drink it. People often use it to cover up the scent of actual poison. If your house ever smells like fish for no reason, 9 times out of 10, it's because there's an electrical fire. If you ever wake up to the smell of gas, don't turn on a light. A spark from the light switch could blow up your entire house. Lying flat on your back is the best way to survive a falling elevator. If your hair suddenly stands up, duck and cover because you're about to be struck by lightning. If you ever fall off the edge onto the tracks, don't try and crawl back up. There's a crawl space built to go underneath in case this happens. If you ever get kidnapped into the back of a vehicle, disconnect the brake light wire so the cops will pull them over, then kick on the door to let them know that you're there.
Come outside, there's a fucking moose or a buffalo or some shit, they're fighting.
So one of the truly hard facts of nature is that when we say herbivore, that means they eat mostly plants, like 90-95%. That 5% will have you fucked up. On rare occasions, horses have been known to pick up baby birds and straight up eat them like popcorn chicken. Cows in Australia were seen chewing and eating a whole sand python. Deer have been caught scavenging the remains of human bodies, and yes, that is someone's rib in Bambi's mouth. And technically squirrels are omnivores, but if I told you what they do to baby birds, you'd never look at them the same. You almost forgot to mention, not only will they feed on past tense animals, you've even recorded them eating the carcasses of their own kind. Now someone's probably gonna comment that hippos are omnivores. Well damn it, they're not supposed to be. But usually when you see herbivores going homicidal, it's often because of a nutrient deficiency. He now believed that it was a phosphorus deficiency that had cows following a mongoose meal prep. Same story with the Dahmer deer, gotta get that calcium somewhere. The more you know.
This rapper actually predicted the coronavirus in 2013. The rapper's name is Dr. Creep, and he has been going viral recently because of a song he released back in 2013. The song is called Pandemic, and I'm just gonna play it for you and you'll understand why everyone is going crazy over it. Yup, so 8 years ago he said 2020 combined with coronavirus. And what's also super creepy is that we don't know anything about him. The only pictures he posts of himself is him hiding his face in a gas mask. Now many people think he's either a time traveler or part of the government or someone trying to warn us about things that are gonna happen in the future.
These are crazy what-if theories. What if air is actually poisonous? It's just taking 80 years to kill us. What if the reason we can't walk through mirrors is because our reflection is blocking us because they want to protect us from the other side? What if birthmarks are the places that actually killed us in our past lives? What if dreams are reality and reality as we know it is a dream?
Morbid Facts, Part 69. The Grinch as a kid was played by an 18-year-old actor with dwarfism who was barely 3 feet tall. Sadly, he died of heart failure just 2 years after the movie was released. A woman posted this photo to Reddit to show the progression of Alzheimer's through her mother's crocheting. From left to right, the squares show her mother's decline over a 2-year span. When the mummy of Ramses II was transported to France in 1974, it was issued an Egyptian passport that listed his occupation as deceased king. A designer of the Titanic named Thomas Andrews was on board as it sank. His original design included more safety features such as watertight compartments and twice as many lifeboats. But his ideas were rejected because others thought that the extra safety features would make the ship look ugly. He spent his last moments helping to evacuate passengers and his body was never recovered.